What up, little queen? So as we can see, got my Mr. Robot sunglasses that they sent me last summer. I think it was around episode 5 or whatever. I don't know, you can watch my little video that is what did Mr. Robot send me. That's where I talk about these sunglasses. I did also wear these to South by Southwest, but then I changed them because people kept staring at me and I was afraid like someone's gonna like snatch them off my face. Thank God that didn't happen. But of course, trusty pen and my little Taylor Swift spiral, kind of like Elliot has like a journal this season. I've always had this, I take my notes in here, all from season 1, every episode that we've had so far. So if you do remember, I did do on Sunday night, which I believe it went up either Monday or Tuesday in the morning, sometime like that. Season 2, episode 1, part 1, I did already recap. Of course, you can watch that. I'll put a card up and whatever, or try to link it somewhere. And that was streaming at different times on Twitter, YouTube, like Snapchat, and Facebook. And that was only for like basically before even midnight. So fortunately, you weren't able to see it unless you saw it tonight, USA at 10 a.m. Central. And we got to see part 2. So after intermission, it went straight into part 2. There's no intro to part 2, just kind of like where it left off on part 1, we go straight into on part 2. And then we're left off for episode 2 or 3, depending how you look at it. So part 2. Also, now I don't believe this is going to be an every Wednesday thing. I know there's going to be something that is hosted by, I believe, The Verge on whoismrrobot.com or USA.com. And that is kind of, I guess, like a discussion of the show. Because tonight for the premiere, they did have Hacking Robot with Andy Greenwald. And he said that they wouldn't be back until September 14th. So I was right for September 13th, somewhere around there, 15th. That is kind of like where the season ends, like the cutoff and stuff. So again, please be considerate of me when the semester starts, that if these recaps are like a couple days like late or something, it's only because I wasn't able to like film that night or sit that night and edit all through to like 5-6 in the morning like I am now in the summer. But they will be back for September 14th for the season finale of Who is Mr. Robot season 2. Before I also get into the recap, I know this is like ugh. It took me a while to find this. I totally missed out on the entertainment, I think, weekly one, because as y'all know, I was in a car crash and stuff. If you saw those videos, if you have been subscribed to me or whatever, or you just came across them on my channel, whatever, scrolling through, I was in a car crash. I just got my car back and stuff, but it's probably going to go back in the shop again. So that's kind of the reason why. And it was this month's issue of GQ. I know it's so weird because you're like, GQ, Kim Kardashian, what the hell? I like Kim Kardashian, I am her, she is me, we both have big asses. Anyways, this is the issue of GQ that does come with Rami Malek in it. So, of course, Rami Malek, I know you can go to RamiMaлекOnline.com, I believe it is. I'll try to link it down below. And you can probably read this up there. I know Claire Fellows tries to link almost everything about Rami Malek that she can get. Any interview, any magazine interview that he does, any magazine spread or cover, anything that has to do with Rami Malek. Claire Fellows is your person at RamiMaлекOnline.com. So, now let's get into part 2 of the season premiere of Who is Mr. Robot. Now, it was called Unmasked Part 1 for Part 1 and Unmasked Part 2 for Part 2. And we did see a bunch of references when Elliot is talking about like masks and what masks do you wear. And I kind of mentioned how in season 1, near the finale, when he's kind of like looking in the mirror, so to speak, and it's his face, it's Darlene's face, it's Angela's face, it's Mr. Robot's face, and then I want to say Gideon's face pops out, maybe Tyrell. So it kind of flashes through everyone and everything like that. And again, in this season, it's kind of like, I guess, who are we truly behind these masks and stuff? And remember, Elliot doesn't trust us, the audience, as his friend, because he thought he could trust us last time, and look what kind of a dilemma he's in. And also, I'm wearing an Evil Corp shirt, because that also had to do with part 2, where, we kind of, again, finally we got to see Joanna and Angela, because I was like, where are they? Like, I'm not going to wait another week, so that it is. So with part 2, basically, the guy whose wife Tyrell choked to death, in part 1, he said that he wanted to be the one who takes the money to the park and basically delivers a ransom that they were asking for before they were going to, like, do something with all the files, like, with encryption and everything like that. So it is kind of like the Steel Mountain kind of thing, how there's like, oh, like, I encrypted it, blah, blah, blah. Kind of like when Elliot was telling Vera, like, oh, it's, like, encrypted, and every 24 hours, like, I have to, like, reset a password and everything like that. So in a way, it is like that, but on a grander scale because they are dealing with Evil Corp as a whole. Their banks, their money, all the digital files, basically Evil Corp's existence, so to speak. And he's there with duffel bags in the park, and he's kind of looking around and stuff like that. And he's kind of communicating with like spies, so to speak, on his thing, which is kind of like his own entourage and stuff like that. So he's kind of like, oh, like, is the coast clear or anything suspicious, you guys? Just stuff like that. As normally, and he kind of has like a random stare off with some guy, and you're kind of wondering like, like, is that gonna be the guy? He's like, oh, like, there's a guy like that looks like whatever, like he doesn't say that, but like you can tell that is what his thought process is. And they kind of just like see each other, and he's kind of like, whatever. And then there is a bicycle guy. So a guy on a bicycle is like coming straight towards him. That's when you're like, oh, like this bicycle dude. Like, who is this bicycle dude? He looks like he's coming straight for me. And then the guy on the bicycle comes up to him, and he's like, oh, like, I'm here. Like, are you from Evil Corp or whatever? And he's like, yeah. And like they're like talking to him on his little earpiece, like, oh, like, blah blah blah, And then he's like, yeah. And then he's like, okay, well, I'm here to like deliver something to you. And he hands him over a backpack after he signs, and it's none other than F Society, so to speak. And there's a little F Society mask in there, and it also says, let's see, to do as they say when after he gets a phone call, which is he empties the money out of the bags and he burns it, but he has to wear the F Society mask. So it's $5.9 million, which is again a symbolic reference or representation of the 5/9 attack. And that 5/9 attack is also the day that Elliot's father, Mr. Robot, was born, Edward Alderson. I want to say Anderson because they messed that up on the Today Show interview. They're like Anderson, and the person's like Anderson Cooper. I digress. But 5/9 years ago was Mr. Robot's birth date. 5/9 was the day of the attack, and 5.9 million is kind of referencing, I guess, the whole predestined Mr. Robot events, so to speak, in that world. And then again, those instructions in the mask are like, wear me and then burn the money. And then we go into $900 billion that are basically at a loss. And that is in 30 days. And this is a conversation between like the old guy that basically gave Angela the job and the money for those Prada shoes, so to speak, with two ladies, Janet and Mary, and a guy, Jack. And they're basically like in a White House setting, so to speak, because he had to fly to DC. And he was talking about like the banks and like the bank holidays, and how when FDR did that and like kind of gave peace of mind to the American people, it really wasn't the peace of mind that the people were looking for, as we basically seen in the promotions where Mr. Robot, where our democracy has been hacked, and like everything is an illusion or a myth or a delusion, nonetheless. And he also talks about how every day we're kind of conned when we buy something, when we believe we need to spend our money on something and anything like that. Like he's like the American dream truly doesn't exist, so to speak, in this world. And I believe that is a very great representation, because it's like we're made to believe things. And for me, that would be like designer material. Like I'm led to believe that, let's say, like this Versace bag or like this Versace watch that probably has like the same parts as any like $45 expensive watch for someone who buys like rubber watches for like $10 or $7 is worth like the $300 or $400, $500, even sometimes like $20,000, $50,000 that they cost just because they have the name and a logo on it. Even though they could be made out of real gold, it's like, is it worth that much truly? Like the cost of everything like that, So you are kind of conned into your daily life and everything. And also, I guess, with food and such, like, is this, like they say, $75 steak the same as this $5 steak, etc., etc., etc. So they also want him to resign because they're like, the president can't go to Congress with a bailout. So again, they've already lost $900 billion, but they don't want to lose more money. Like the American people are already hoarding their money. They basically withdrew everything they have out of banks and everything. Because if you do remember from season 1, when all this happened, a lot of people were like going to the banks and trying to get their money out. And a lot of ATMs weren't working, and people were like, oh, like it's cash only, no card and stuff. So that is kind of, I guess, scary if you ever think about things like that. Because I know as we progress forward in our own society, we're kind of looking towards like a cashless or a paperless currency, or like a standard of living, so to speak. And that also kind of makes me think of that movie, I think it's called In Time, the one with Justin Timberlake, where they have like little like numbers on their wrists or something, just things like that I kind of thought about. And then Again, he mentioned that bank holiday and how it's like almost like a controversial conspiracy if you've ever like thought about it or anything. And again, like you con those people into like a certain type of belief every time like the market bell goes off on Wall Street, etc. And then we see again the return of Joanna, and there's a knife like that's going down her body, and right away I knew this is Joanna because obviously who else is as freaky as Joanna? You know, like let's go real here. Like she's into like that 50 Shades of Grey stuff and everything like that. So she has a knife. She has a new dude. It's just her and like this random dude that's like standing there nude, really attractive dude. And then she gets slapped and stuff because you know she is into like I guess being restrained and being hit and stuff because she's so in control and in a way inconsiderate of other people's feelings, emotions, daily lives that I guess that's the only place for her to not have control and just kind of like let herself be taken over, be submissive as they say, and just let life go on. And then we see the first basically well, I guess the debut of Agent De Piero, I believe is how you say the name, or Di Piero. And she is basically a lady ordering at a convenience store coffee and a sandwich, blah blah blah, making like they say small talk, but not really with the cashier person there at that little convenience store. And it goes off to someone saying, "Oh, they're waiting for us," and there she is in like the FBI room, like there's writing all over the wall, and she's basically, I guess, like the person in charge of trying to figure out who did 5-9, what happened with 5-9, what were like intentions, you know, just basically in charge of investigating the whole 5-9 thing, which is why I say this season is basically more or less following the consequences of 5-9 and the big hack and the taking of Steel Mountain, and I guess all the repercussions that Elliot and F Society are going to have to face due to what they did being a crime. And then also there at the FBI, when they say waiting for us, we do see Gideon at the interview. And Gideon is doing an interview because in the first season, he did kind of threaten Elliot, so to speak, when he said, I'll go to the FBI. It's like, you don't tell me this if you don't tell me that. Mr. Robot was telling him, like, oh, he's probably going to do it. Like, he's probably going to screw you over. Like, this is what every strong person tends to do when they're actually at their weakest and, like, not wearing that mask, so to speak. Because if you do remember, like, Gideon had that private jet that he took Elliot out and stuff, and they had to go, like, get the honeypot, blah, blah, blah. So Gideon comes from, like, a lot of money, kind of like, let's say, a Terry Colby in a way, or, like, that guy who gave Angela the money, etc., but now that he kind of has nothing and there's no Allsafe anymore, like, he literally is worthless in that world. And then we go to Elliot at a basketball game with Leon, and there's like a little confrontation between Leon and like the basketball players because the ball rolls to them. He doesn't, I guess, get up fast enough to give the basketball to him, and Elliot's kind of just like looking. And he kind of did say, like in the previous episode, like he doesn't get people in sports. Like they get so emotional or like, you know, worked up, but like to him it's kind of like over nothing. Since Elliot is kind of like the antisocial, kind of like, I guess, recluse that just well would used to stay on a computer because now that he's living with his like new mom and his new home, like there's no electronics and it's just him and his like daily programming analog kind of caveman like life compared to like the whole being so like conducive to his own like hacking and everything like that. Like he's basically distanced himself from letting or allowing Mr. Robot to take over his life once again and again. The only way to do that was to get rid of all sorts of technology. And then we go to where Craig Robinson shows up in the same scene. And he kind of like stops the little confrontation from happening. He's like, no, like I got the ball and stuff. Because Leon and this guy were going to go at it or something. Elliot's just there and Craig Robinson comes in. We do see that Craig Robinson is probably going to play a bigger part, or at least a very significant part. Kind of like Vera in a way did with Shayla and stuff. Like it wasn't, I guess, I want to say conducive to the season finale with his hack, but in a way it probably scars Elliot as a character later on. And then I believe they talk about Shayla, something like that, when Craig Robinson's character like mentions like, did you have a girl or something like that? Except I was like, Rami Malek has me. And then they mentioned like different perceptions of players with his dog and how the dog probably just sees them as a bunch of animals trying to get a ball in a hoop. And then he kind of like says, or they perceive themselves to be like badasses and like they're like playing stuff and like you don't want to cross them or like they'll do something, which again kind of ties into like who are you behind your mask. And this kind of made me think of Cinderella, the live action movie, if you haven't seen it, from Disney. I believe it came out I think it was like last fall, 2015. And it's near the end when the prince comes to Cinderella's house with the glass slipper. Again, kind of thinking like different facets of the glass slipper and what it can hold and like the magic and stuff. And it's right before she's walking in. I believe when she looks in the mirror before her mom's voice comes out, the fairy godmother is kind of like saying, "This is like when we're at our most vulnerable. Like, it's when people will see us for who we truly are, and something that a lot of people fear. You know, like I guess letting your real self be looked at. You know, being very transparent as possible, if that's what it takes, and not wearing a mask in Elliot's, you know, definition, so to speak." And then he says, maybe what we think is all we've got. So, you know, like if you think this, like maybe that's all you have, like your own delusion, your own delusive perception of yourself or your own life and anything like that. And we do kind of see that in the first season again when Elliot was like trying to live his normal life in that Starbucks scene where he's like, oh, like maybe I can finally have a Facebook and, you know, like this with Angela and like Instagram and this and that, you know, like. And also that guy, I believe Bill at Steel Mountain, when he's like, oh, like Bill just has Instagram pictures of him and his cats and stuff like that. So, you know, it's kind of like feeding off of that at the same time, leading us up to what we don't know what could possibly happen. And then Mr. Robot appears, and it's kind of like to tell Elliot, this is so like you can help Craig Robinson's character. And then they kind of have a, I guess, a breakout of that analog nightmare and regimen where I guess Elliot is probably breaking at the seams, per se, where Mr. Robot is just constantly coming back, because he would write on a journal like, oh, he hasn't bothered me, and like, this time he shot me in the head again, and, you know, like, I didn't flinch and stuff, I wasn't afraid. Like, he thinks he's in control, but he probably is in no control of his own self, which we do see, you know, a little bit later. And then Tyrell's still missing, and they talk about how he was, like, the lead suspect in the Sharon Knowles case, which, again, Mr. Knowles is that guy whose wife Tyrell choked to death in season 1 on the rooftop or something like that. And that was a Nancy Grace thing, and it's Joanna and the new guy, and he flips to Vanderpump Rules, which I believe Stephanie Cornelius, the actress who plays Joanna, is like friends with one of the ladies on Vanderpump Rules. And she's basically in the tub, you know, like, I guess cleaning off or whatever, or just soaking. And then there's like a knock at the door, and I guess it's like either an FBI person or just like security or like the person who escorts her from here to there, A to Z, you know. And then she's like, oh, like hand me a towel and stuff. And then she tells the guy like, oh, like you should go because we can't be seen together. So that in a way makes me wonder, does this guy kind of have more to play, or is she using him for something else that we don't know? Is it someone that Tyrell possibly have sent, as we will see later on in this episode? Like, we don't know. And then we see Angela as E-Corp manager or something like that, and PR manager, and she's on the phone talking about, you know, the money being burned, and that it's kind of not all there. And that scene kind of reminds me of when Elliot was actually acting businesslike, so to speak, when Tyrell came into the building and he was like, oh, who are you? And then he's just like, oh, I'm just a tech, you know, like Elliot, you know, like I'm just a tech. That very much well reminded me of that episode. And I thought, in this season, I said, I feel like Portia Doubleday's character, Angela, is going to be, I don't want to say a direct mirror image or actions or anything like that of Elliot, but at the same time, I'm like, possibly, because later on in the episode when I get into it, there is something that kind of reminds me basically of Elliot all over, and I wonder, again, if Angela could be the next Elliot, if Angela has something up her sleeve, you know, based on her mother, because remember, she did go into an attorney or a lawyer saying, like, hey, like, they killed my mom here, like, the data dumps, and, like, we need to take this to court, and she wanted to work for them before she got the offer from Evil Corp to work there, and she basically, I guess, made a deal with the devil, so to speak. And then she is something on the phone about the suicide from season 1 on the news, on the interview that was live, and then also the exclusive with Bloomberg TV. And there's this random lady that's kind of just watching her like, yeah, like she's crazy or something. That also kind of reminded me of when Angela kind of knew that Elliot was a little bit off, but they were childhood friends. And like she's kind of watching Angela like, okay, like I don't know what she's doing or whatever. And to me, that reminded me of that random lady as Angela, whoever she's on the phone with, possibly being like, you know, like Angela's boyfriend, you know? And then Angela, again, is like the new Elliot. So that's why I say, I feel Angela is going to play a very big part this season. Also, probably Darlene and Elliot, of course. But, like, I just feel like something else will happen. and we don't truly know, or maybe nothing will happen, nothing will come of it. You never know with the way Sam Esmail created this show. And then we also go to Joanna again, and there is a gift on her doorstep, and she's with her baby, of course, because I was kind of wondering, like, where's the baby? And it's a little box with a red ribbon, and there's a jewelry box, and she kind of feels around. So it seems as though Joanna kind of knew that Tyrell was always sneaky, very tech savvy, or she obviously controlled him, so to speak, in a way. And she's kind of like feeling around. She's like, like nothing there. And then she takes it up. She picks it up, and then she flips it over. There is a phone basically taped to the bottom of the jewelry box. And she's kind of like, and stuff. And then we go to Angela at the bar with that lawyer or attorney lady from the first season, where they're talking about Colby and stuff like that. And then she's like, oh, like, I told you, like, not to take that job and stuff. And she's like, but you took it. Everything like that. And Angela kind of, like, blows her off. She was like, oh, like, I don't need you. Like, she's like, you probably think, like, they're doing something bad. And she's kind of telling her, like, you either, like, took the bait or, like, you just, in a way, don't care anymore. Like, you lost your own credibility or, you know, actions and stuff like that. You know, that kind of, like, conversation, so to speak, was kind of had between the both of them. Like, a little butting of heads, but the attorney lady was kind of just like, whatever. Because Angela's like, oh, you probably don't see my value, but I have more to offer than what people think, and like more than what you offer yourself with the case and stuff like that. And then in a way, the attorney lady kind of calls her a gold digger because she does like a bar joke from like 1 million to $1. And it's kind of saying like, oh, like a man walks into a bar, he sees like a pretty lady, start flirting, if I offered you $1 million, like, would you sleep with me? And like the lady is kind of like thinking about it. And then she's kind of like, yes. And then he's like, okay, what do I change the offer to $1? And like how the lady would gasp and be like, what do you think I'm worth? And then she's like, well, the guy just figured out what she'll do. Like, she'll put out for anything, so to speak. And then he's like, I'm just negotiating my price. And then it goes into Angela actually doing that without the money, where she hooks up with a guy at a bar. New apartment, basically, because as we all do remember, her boyfriend, we know, was cheating on her, blah, blah, blah. He was kind of blackmailed into it. And kind of played a part in the hack and stuff when she had to do that, like, I guess, burning or downloading, uploading of the CD at the workplace. And I do believe she did use his computer and stuff, because he was like, oh, like, we're gonna come looking for you. And she was like, no, I, like, used your computer, you know, so I guess she was smart in that. And she wakes up, it's, like, kind of the middle of the night, and she's watching this positive affirmations video to form good neural pathways, and she's repeating over and over, like, I am confident, I have self-worth, or, you know, just things like that. So it looks to me as maybe Angela had somewhat of the same issues as Elliot, but obviously not to like that abusive state. It's kind of more like a, I want to say like self-deprecating in a way, but at the same time, not really. Or maybe she just handled it very well. She knew how to deal with herself. But as with Elliot, we did see like his father, Mr. Robot, throw him out the window, and like his parents always fighting, and it kind of seems like he had a rough childhood or like a rough home. Stuff like that. And then it zooms out to the TV, and there's a fish in a thing, and it kind of reminded me of Elliot's fish when he was living in his own little apartment and stuff like that in the first season. And I'm kind of wondering, I'm like thinking again, is Angela having a mental breakdown? Is Angela going to become the new Elliot? Is she going to start maybe on some kind of drug to like numb the pain? Is she going to kind of become a corporate prostitute? I don't know if that would be the right word, you know? Like maybe, like in Lana Del Rey's song, like fucked your way up to the top with that old guy, or like other people, because we did see in the first season with Tyrell and some other guys are like, oh yeah, like it seems like people are sleeping their way up to the top, and like these two guys kind of joke with each other like, oh hey, I'll sleep with you for like money, or like to get into a higher position here, because he's like, oh yeah, like some guys are going gay for this, and then like basically women just sleep with the boss, so to speak. And that makes me think of two different things, because obviously we kind of saw that insecurity where she sleeps with someone that she met at a bar, but then also she kind of has like some kind of thing where she doesn't believe she has her own self-worth, etc. like that. So I'm kind of wondering if she's having her own mental breakdown slowly and stuff. Maybe she's having a mental breakdown and buying cute things because she bought Prada shoes, because also maybe that traumatic experience where the guy just shot himself in the head from the season finale. You never know. And then we go to Elliot and Craig Robinson at the park, and he's kind of like, oh, we're friends and stuff, blah, blah, blah. And Elliot's kind of just like, I'm good. Like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to be friends. Very, I guess, antisocial, very typical of Elliot, you know, so to speak. And he's like, but what about when we spoke last night? And Elliot's like, we never talked and stuff. And Craig Robinson is kind of just like looking at him like, oh, you really like don't remember like that conversation or anything that we talked about last night. And that to us, the audience, is like, so then he probably talked to Mr. Robot. Since we do remember Mr. Robot when he came back, especially with Gideon and stuff, he was like taunting him, saying like, oh, I wonder like if I slit his throat, will it be me or will it be you, Elliot? Since Mr. Robot is Elliot, like I said, it seems as though he's breaking or tearing apart at the seams, and maybe Mr. Robot is coming back. Like subconsciously, he knows he has to finish something, but his in the moment self to protect himself is kind of like, maybe I got in too deep or something like that. So there is kind of like that inner conflict between him and his father, who knows what other issues we'll see come up in the future or anything like that. And then he basically runs away to check his journal. And he finds there's a gap from when he was sleeping to when he woke up, and he says, I think this is basically what I can't remember is when I talked to Greg Robinson, you know? And he's like, that's probably the conversation that we had. And it seems, again, as Craig Robinson is up to something, because he asked him about, like, computers or something, and Elliot was like, oh, like, whatever you heard, like, I don't do that anymore, like, it wasn't true, blah, 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 and stuff. And then Mr. Robot tells him, I kind of did this to help them realize that they see me and not you. When he says that, it's like, when they're talking to Elliot, they're talking to Mr. Robot, and they don't see Elliot, which we did see in season 1, which a lot of us had suspicions but weren't completely sure, where we thought, okay, like Mr. Robot and Elliot are just two very different people. Like they're two different, I guess, entities, so to speak. Like they weren't one person having like a mental breakdown, you know? Because like we would see like Elliot here and like Mr. Robot over there. So it was very believable that like maybe they're the same person, but we don't think so. So again, it's kind of like, again, thinking Mr. Robot is probably coming out of Elliot again. Elliot knows like he has to continue doing something, like he knows he may get in trouble, so that's the reason why he's still hacking Gideon, so he can like, you know, make a bait that they take Gideon and that they do this and they get this person and they don't get him, and they keep the revolution going, so to speak. And then Elliot is laughing. He's kind of like breaking down and stuff, and he asks Mr. Robot again, like, where is Tyrell? Because it's like in those 3 days that he was basically knocked out in that like SUV or Suburban, he's kind of like blacked out. He doesn't remember anything, and it does look like at the end of this episode we may touch upon it next episode or the next couple episodes. You never truly know when. And he basically just says like, keep shooting me and stuff. He's like, but I have a church group to go to, so he leaves to his church group. And there's the $5.9 million burning on the news and stuff, and the F Society attack and all that stuff, you know, is just on the news as always, as it's going to be in this series. And it's getting at a bar, and there's this random person, you know, that's kind of there talking about the crash and basically the whole F Society thing and just stuff in general, you know, kind of just thinking out loud, so to speak. And it looks like it's a guy trying to hit on him, you know, like it looks like someone's trying to hit on Gideon and stuff. And he kind of says like how he's married, and then I believe they mentioned that his boyfriend or his husband had left him and everything like that. And then he's like, oh, like, you must be very important, the guy tells him at the bar. And then he's kind of like, what do you mean? Because when he talks about it, he's like, oh, like, what else do, like, the tabloids know and stuff? Because he's like, I know, like, you're Gideon Goddard or whatever and stuff. And he's just like, like, basically, like, he knows, like, as high profile as a public citizen he's become, like, what do people know about him? Like, let's say, like, he doesn't know himself. And again, this kind of makes me think of, like, oh, better the devil you know than the devil you don't know, so to speak. And then he calls him a crisis actor. So this guy at the bar calls Gideon a crisis actor, and he basically shoots Gideon. And in a way, it's kind of like killing him for a conspiracy, where we do see, even with last season's finale, that shooting, like, that happened live on the news that basically was mirrored in the season finale, was also deemed a conspiracy by some conspiracy theorists as well, like the Sandy Hook and like 9/11 and some other stuff that happens. Like, everyone always says like it's conspiracy, or like it's for something else, or like it's to kind of push a certain agenda and stuff like that. So I guess like this plays in part of it. Like they probably think like Gideon is just like a very important crisis actor that's trying to like do something with the economy or whatever, because we did see like the con of the American dream, and maybe this guy kind of believes something as such, where it's like, okay, like maybe Gideon is just like conning the whole American people into this and that, especially when they talked about the bank holidays and stuff. Like all the deals that they are made behind closed doors that the top 1% of the 1% make, are just disguised by, oh, like, we're going to close banks and open them one by one. But then if you think about it, like, oh, maybe those banks that opened on certain days or at certain times are like the first banks to give in or to do something corporate wise. Stuff like that. And then we go to Joanna. She's back and she has her baby on a baby monitor and the baby's just crying. I'm like, oh my god, Joanna, like, take care of your kid. And the baby's crying and she has a missed call on that phone that was given to her. And this part kind of confused me because I'm like, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Because who would we think to be calling Joanna? Obviously Tyrell Wallach. And then we go to Elliot at a church group. And the lady is reading a passage from the Bible. I don't know the Bible that well, obviously. And she ends with like, oh, and God, and like, he made his son or something like that. And I was kind of thinking, I was like, Mr. Robot and Elliot. Like, Mr. Robot would be playing God, and then to make Jesus Christ out of his own flesh, so to speak, or the flesh of man would be Elliot. Where he was a child that wasn't jaded, but then in a way he was in some sort of like brainwashing conspiracy like turn of events where Mr. Robot made Elliot believe like the 5'9" thing and like this and that, which obviously it probably does happen in real life. I wouldn't doubt it and stuff. But in that world, like, he probably just like kept throwing like a barrage of stuff into Elliot as a child and throwing him out the window, and like the abuse and the fighting, that kind of unhealthy environment that he had to grow up in as a child probably really did affect him and stuff like that. So he's probably like thinking of that, like, and everything as such. And then he gets a call on the phone at his mom's house. And this is where I said, okay, either he was calling Joanna at first. I was like, okay, maybe the missed call was Elliot to Joanna. Because we do remember in last season, in the finale, they ran into each other. She's like, oh, and who are you? And how do you know Tyrell and stuff? And he's like, oh, like, I'm Ollie. Like, he basically, like, wanted to meet me or whatever, like, small talk. Like, he's just thinking of something just to, like, get out of the way, so to speak. And then there's a voice that comes on a little, like, staticky, and it says, is it really you? And then you find out Tyrell called Elliot. Which is why I say, okay, so Tyrell called Joanna. Probably to say, like, oh, like, go kill Elliot or, like, do this or whatever. Or Elliot called Joanna. And Elliot is either imagining that Tyrell called him since he wants to remember what happened to Tyrell in those 3 days. All those events that he missed out on. Like, he probably either wants to remember exactly what happened and is probably, like, going through these delusions again. In a way, almost like a self-hypnotic but awake series of unfortunate events to find out the truth. But the episode just ends with Bonsoir, Elliot, which we do remember from the first season, when he tells him that and he has like all these executive people around him and he's like, oh, you're seeing this too, and he kind of just like into the camera, and that episode ended in season 1. Kind of a repeat of part 2, which kind of, I guess, happened in the same pace, in this first episode. And again, this kind of sets up for a very, very, very exciting new season of Who is Mr. Robot, and that's why I say I believe this season is going to be very crazy. I feel like a lot of the characters this season are going to have much more of a bigger part to play, a very confusing, intermingling web of events that basically lead up to a big one, like in the first season that I had all those, which, again, you can watch all those recaps and my thoughts and everything like that, but I feel like this opening was very symbolic. There was a lot of Easter eggs that happened, of course, like with Sam Esmail on the train in season 1 when Mr. Robot first meets him, and the 5'9" thing, and one of the Fight Club songs when I think it's him and Tyrell in the arcade, and more or less things like that. And also with Christian Slater and an F Society mask when Darlene smashes that guy's phone in the first part of this premiere, like little things like that, like we all probably overlook and we all have to go on Reddit for. And if you do remember in that journal that Elliot was writing in, there was a QR code, and supposedly I think on Reddit right now in Hacking Robot, they kind of like remade it so you can actually scan it and I guess be led to it. I haven't like saw it because I just finished watching Hacking Robot and I'm doing this. But of course, like if I like look it up, if I remember to look it up, when I'm editing and like linking stuff together on my YouTube, I'll be sure to let you know. But of course, if you are looking for Rami Malek and GQ, this is the cover with Kim Kardashian. It was a very hard cover to find. I couldn't find it at Barnes & Nobles, but I found it at my Walmart, so I don't know what that's about. But of course, leave all your ideas, your theories, any Reddit things, any exciting things you want to tell me, just leave all those in the comment section down below, and I'll try to respond to you or like look at them. But also please like, rate, share, and subscribe, you guys, so I know you guys are very interested in watching this. So again, I want to say hi to Rami Malek, stay safe and God bless, and go buy season 1 of Mr. Robot on DVD, on Amazon, on Blu-ray, you know, anything like that. I want to say it's still on sale, but it could be wrong. Probably jump back up to $30. I don't know, but either way, just watch it or even just stream it, season 1 on Amazon, if you feel like you missed something or you want to go check something out. If you look at my old recaps and you've seen these episodes. So, again, Hacking Robot should be back September 14th, and whatever The Verge is hosting on USA.com will be there next Wednesday and stuff from till September 14th. So, again, let's just all be so excited for season 2, and let's hope I can go to South by Southwest and possibly meet the actors, and maybe I can get them in a vlog or something, like how I usually try to do with some celebrities. So again, hi to Rami Malek, stay safe, and God bless. Can't wait for next week's episode, you guys.